All right, everybody, good late morning. Hope you guys are doing well today. And we are doing a very special offensive coordinator candidate resume review because this is, as of right now, my number one. This is my guy. This is the one that would make me the most happy, and I think would make the largest percentage of people the most happy. I think that this one combines a lot of elements that people want while avoiding the elements that people don't want. It's Frank Reich. You probably heard the name before. He's certainly been a name in the NFL for a while now. He was a former player, one of the great backup quarterbacks in NFL history. Now you might be able to secure his services as an offensive coordinator. This video is being powered by BetUS. More on them a little bit later, but Frank Reich brings a proven track record of success as an offensive coordinator and play caller in the NFL. He brings extensive experience as a head coach in the NFL, meaning that he's seen it all and he's seen it from different perspectives. And he brings a pedigree of proving that he can do it at the highest level without the upside of, oh, everyone's just going to hire him to be a head coach. He's not getting a head coaching job because his last two didn't work out. He's probably not quite there on the head coaching level, and at this point, he's 63 years old. He may never be. But if you can get him as an offensive coordinator, you know you're getting somebody who can do it because he's done it before. So let's go through the resume here, starting with his head coaching work, which, look, don't fall for the eye candy here. He was the head coach of the Panthers for the first 11 games of 2023. The Panthers started out miserably 1-10, and they had one of the worst offenses in the league. 15.7 points per game, negative .146 EPA per play, both 29th in the league. So that's really bad. They weren't really better after Frank Reich left. They did get a little bit better this most recent year with Canales, but that probably has something to do with the fact that they also had better players as well. And it still wasn't great in Carolina. There were some real issues there. And you go back to his final year in Indianapolis as a head coach, 2022, he starts out 3-5-1, 14.7 points per game, last in the league during that stretch, negative .15 EPA per play, which was last in the league during that stretch. It is worth noting they didn't really get better after he left. In fact, I think they got a little bit worse, and they still haven't really been able to find their footing since he left. So I'm not one to put a lot of blame on him for this, but I understand that people are going to look at those two numbers, those 2 years, and go, well, what's so exciting about Frank Reich? The thing with Frank Reich to understand is that when he's had his quarterback, he's been able to find success, and there have even been some results of him finding a way with a more middle-of-the-road quarterback. So when you gave him washed-up Matt Ryan in 2022, yeah, he wasn't able to make anything happen. When you gave him rookie, over-his-head, overwhelmed Bryce Young in 2023, yeah, he didn't give you results. But when you gave him decent stuff to work with, like the Colts tried to do in the immediate post-Andrew Luck years, he was able to find some modicum of success. And when you gave him Andrew Luck for that first year, he found a lot of success. So 2021, he got Carson Wentz, and this is after Carson Wentz had washed out of Philadelphia and been kind of given up on by that team. He wasn't a bad quarterback yet, but he wasn't really a good one either. And they got good play out of him. He had a decent year for Indy. 9-8. They were ninth in scoring, 26.5 points per game, .06 EPA per play, which was 13th in the league. That's not bad. Remember where Carson Wentz has been since he left Indy. He's almost out of the league. He washed out of Washington really quickly, and now he's a backup. So I don't consider this year to be a bad indictment on Frank Reich at all. Before we go any further, though, I do want to tell you about my friends over at BetUS. The Seahawks season is over, but the ability to gamble on NFL games is not. We've got divisional round games coming up later this week. We got Texans, Chiefs, Commanders, Lions, Ravens, Bills. You've got the Rams, Eagles as well. You're going to be able to bet on all these games over on BetUS. Point spreads, money lines, totals, game props, parlays, whatever you want to do. And use promo code YouTube150 You get free money. They're giving away free money, basically. 150% deposit bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. 125 on your next two deposits up to $2,000. So it's a lot of free money out there. 125% bonus on your deposits. So get on over there, get your free money, and get to some sports betting. Bet US. Right. So 2020, COVID year, he gets the final years of Phillip Rivers. And look what he did with him. This was end of the line. Phillip Rivers wins 11 games as head coach, ninth in the league in points, 28 points per game, and .083 EPA per play, which was 12th, a little above average. That's pretty impressive. Like, you can't even really say he had his quarterback this year. He had a quarterback. Rivers was competent, but he wasn't working with somebody who was able to carry the show, especially not at that point. That was Phillip Rivers' final year before retirement. 2019, I think this was the Jacoby Brissett year. Yeah, it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either. With Jacoby Brissett, who is very limited as a quarterback, we know this, 22.5 points per game and .009 EPA per play, that's average. 16th, bang average. And in 2018, when he had Andrew Luck, when he had a quarterback, a really good QB, 10-6, 27.1 points per game, which was 5th. So offense was pushing up into the elite stratosphere. .059 EPA per play, which was 10th. So that's good too. Not great, but good. And I mean, those Colts teams, when you think about their talent other than the quarterback, they had some good players. This was like the, T.Y. Hilton, this was like the T.Y. Hilton Colts. This was before Jonathan Taylor. These were some of the, I think this Colts team may have had a little bit from Marlon Mack. I think that this Colts team hadn't yet drafted Quentin Nelson. So it wasn't like a super talented unit. And he was getting the results. And then Luck retired. And there's a very good chance Frank Reich is still the head coach of the Colts right now if Luck doesn't retire. He was supposed to get Andrew Luck's prime, and then stuff happened. So I think this was just really bad luck on his part. Now, you go back a year further, the stuff he did that got him the head coaching job in Indy, it's all about 2017. 2017, he's the Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator. The Eagles are the best team in the league. They're going through that year. They got probably the best offense in football. They lose their starting left tackle, Jason Peters, who's one of the greatest left tackles in NFL history. They lose their quarterback, Carson Wentz, who was going to win league MVP that year almost certainly before he got hurt. And then he goes and wins the Super Bowl by dropping 40-plus on Bill Belichick. That is one of the great performances you will see from any offensive coordinator and play caller ever. He won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. He turned Nick Foles into Dan Marino for a couple games. And you think about that Eagles team. Obviously, you had the great offensive line even without Peters. You had guys like Lane Johnson and Jason Kelce. But other than that, like the skill position players, they had Zach Ertz and they had Alshon Jeffrey. Everybody else was just like, whatever. Jay Ajayi, Corey Clement, Nelson Aguilar. It was kind of a mishmash of decent, but not really all that special players. And Frank Reich got incredible stuff out of them. To me, this is the thing. This is the thing with Frank Reich. The fact that he pulled this off makes me believe in how good he can be. You give him stuff to work with, he will find a way to work with it. And it's whatever the stuff may be, because in 2018, he didn't really have much of an offensive line. The Colts' offensive line was so bad, Andrew Luck decided to retire the next offseason. They didn't have the offensive line yet, so you can't say he's an offensive line merchant. I don't think so. 2016, Eagles have a lot less talent on the offense. It's still not bad. 16th in the league, 22.9 points per game, average. Rookie Carson Wentz. It still isn't anything that I look at and go, hey, that's untenable. That's a sign of trouble. Like, to me, that's still workable. 2 years prior to that, he was the San Diego Chargers offensive coordinator. These years, much less impressive, admittedly. 2015, the offense was bad. This got everybody fired. I think these were the Mike McCoy or Matt McCoy Chargers. 20 points per game, 26th in the league. Kind of interesting too, because this was like near the tail end of the Phillip Rivers prime, but they weren't really able to get good results out of the offense. 2014, they were okay, 21.8 points per game, which was 17th, so about average. But these Chargers years, not great for Frank Reich. He was the quarterback coach in 2013 for the Chargers. Phillip Rivers did have a really good year this year, but Phillip Rivers had a lot of really good years, regardless of who the quarterback coach was. 4,500 yards, 32 touchdowns, 11 picks, 69.5 completion, 105.5 rating. I mean, it's classic Phillip Rivers, right? He's good. All right, going back to before his days as an offensive coordinator, he spent some time as a wide receiver coach, was the wide receiver coach for a very bad Arizona team in 2020. I remember this Arizona team started the season 4-0, and then I think went 1-11 the rest of the way. They didn't really have a quarterback, so the receivers really couldn't do anything. Larry Fitzgerald had about 800 yards. Andre Roberts had about 750. Michael Floyd had 560. It's okay, but obviously Larry Fitzgerald has had much better seasons than this in his career. And this was not necessarily prime Larry Fitzgerald, but this was still a pretty good version of Larry Fitzgerald. So we don't love what we see here, but at the same time, it's just not a good offense in general. The Colts, he was a wide receiver coach for 1 year, 2011. Reggie Wayne was still there, putting up almost 1,000 yards on that season. By the way, these were the Colts that were so bad they got Andrew Luck, right? These were the Colts that went 2-14. Reggie Wayne still almost had 1,000. Pierre Garçon almost had 1,000. Austin Collie had about 500. So still decent production. Again, no quarterback this year. This was Curtis Painter. But you still see okay production here. And Reggie Wayne is a borderline Hall of Famer in this league. I'm not going to say that Frank Reich made Reggie Wayne, but still pretty good. He was the quarterback coach in Indy for 2 years from 2009 to 2010. 2010 was not one of Peyton Manning's better years. This was the final year before he had to have the neck surgery. His body was falling apart. Still put up Pro Bowl numbers, man. 4,700 yards, 33 touchdowns, 17 picks, 66.3% completion, 91.9 rating. 2009, however, a little bit better. Higher completion percentage, 99.9 rating. Higher yards per attempt, I believe, even though he had fewer yards. But again, it's Peyton Manning. Like, what am I going to do? Sit here and act like the quarterback coach is the key for Peyton Manning being a good quarterback? No. He's had plenty of quarterback coaches. I don't think any one of them made a particularly big difference over another. In 2008, for the Colts, he was an offensive coaching staff assistant. Who knows what that meant? But the 2008 Colts had a slightly above average offense, 23.6 points per game, 13th. And for the previous 2 years, 2006, which was the year the Colts won the Super Bowl, and 2007, he was a coaching intern, whatever that means. Both years, the Colts had an elite offense, by the way. 28 points per game, which was third. A little less than 27, which was second. So 2 really good offensive years for whatever that means. Hard to know. But overall, this is a really strong resume, and the stuff that is strong is really strong, right? Like, forget about this early stuff. Forget about this. He got an Eagles team that was missing their quarterback and their left tackle to win the Super Bowl. Like the 28.6 points per game they averaged that year is one thing. Like, that's good. That's really good. That's awesome. But he was able to maintain most of their production in the playoffs against, what was it, Mike Zimmer and Bill Belichick with the backup quarterback and the backup left tackle. And then things get off to a good start in Indy with Andrew Luck. They have a good first year, and then he just can't quite find a solution after Andrew Luck retires. And then he takes the job in Carolina, never had a chance. To me, Frank Reich would be the perfect OC. He's someone who is going to be not surprised by anything. He's somebody who has proven results. You're not really going to have to worry about anybody trying to steal him as a head coach anytime soon because he's already had a couple opportunities and he's going to have to build up some goodwill. The hardest part with Frank Reich is convincing him to come out of semi-retirement because he didn't coach last year. But if you can, this is my number one guy. This is the guy that I want. If we get him, I'm thinking big things for this offense. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks.